Stop the meeting. That clause is a trap. The words didn't belong in that room. Not from her. A mop bucket stood beside Evelyn Carter, water still rippling from the last push across the marble floor. No one had noticed her 5 seconds ago. Now every head turned. Leather chairs creaked. Someone let out a quiet scoff. Richard Cole didn't move. His pen hovered above the final page. The glass walls reflected everything back in cold light. Something about the silence felt off. Too sharp. Too sudden. Who said that? A board member muttered, scanning the room like the voice had no owner. Evelyn didn't step back. She didn't lower her eyes. She just pointed. Page 14. Second paragraph. A pause. Short. Heavy. The kind that doesn't belong in a billion-dollar room. A man near the end of the table chuckled under his breath. She cleans the floors. Another voice followed, softer, amused. Let her finish. This should be good. The air shifted, but not in her favor. It pressed down, thick with doubt. Evelyn's hand tightened around the mop handle. It left a faint mark on her palm. She didn't notice. Not anymore. The clause sat there, buried in clean language. It looked harmless. That was the problem. It transfers full liability, she said. Calm. Too calm for someone in her position. A few people leaned forward. Not out of belief. Out of curiosity. Like watching something small try to stand too tall. Richard finally looked up. Slow. Measured. His eyes didn't show surprise. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Most people would have laughed by now. He didn't. His gaze moved from her, to the page, then back again. Just a flicker. But it was enough. Someone cleared their throat. Another tapped a tablet, scrolling fast. That's not possible, a legal advisor said quickly. Too quickly. The word echoed in the room. Not possible. Evelyn didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just stayed there. Still. Present. The fluorescent lights hummed above. The smell of polish hung in the air. A detail out of place lingered in her mind. Richard hadn't interrupted her. Not once. That didn't match the stories. The ones about control. Precision. No tolerance for mistakes. His pen. Lowered slightly. Then stopped. Right before the signature line. A second passed. Then another. The room held its breath without meaning to. Security, someone whispered near the door. A quiet suggestion. A predictable outcome. Evelyn heard it. She didn't turn. Her pulse picked up, but her voice didn't follow. If you sign that, she added, softer now, you take every loss alone. A few heads turned sharply. Not at her. At him. Waiting. Watching. Richard leaned back in his chair. Slow. Controlled. The leather shifted under his weight. His eyes dropped to the contract again. He flipped one page. Then back. Careful. Precise. Like he was looking for something he already knew. That was the second thing that felt wrong. The legal advisor leaned closer. Sir, we've reviewed. Richard raised one finger. Not high. Not dramatic. Just enough. The man stopped mid-sentence. Silence snapped back into place. Heavy. Immediate. Evelyn exhaled slowly through her nose. Her grip loosened by half an inch. Not relief. Not yet. Something colder. The kind of moment where everything could break the wrong way. The claws sat there between them. Quiet. Dangerous. And somehow, familiar to him. His jaw tightened just once. Barely visible. Then his eyes lifted to meet hers again. Not angry. Not confused. Something else. Something harder to read. Interesting, he said quietly. No one moved. No one spoke. The room felt smaller than before. Like the walls had shifted in. A beat passed. Then he added, almost to himself, "You weren't supposed to catch that." The words lingered longer than they should have. You were not supposed to catch that. A few people blinked, unsure if they heard it right. One executive shifted in his chair, then forced a laugh that did not land. "Sir," the legal advisor said carefully, like stepping onto thin ice. Richard did not answer him. His eyes stayed on Evelyn. Not dismissive. Not impressed. Measuring. That was new. The room felt colder. The air conditioner hummed above, steady and indifferent. Evelyn's pulse ticked in her ears, slow but heavy. She did not move. Not now. Not after that sentence. He knew. That was clear now. But the question hung between them. Why? Say it out loud. Richard tapped the pen once against the paper. A soft sound. Too loud in the silence. Then he closed the contract. Not slammed. Just, closed. A controlled motion. Final, but not finished. Walk me through it, he said. No one expected that. The legal advisor leaned forward again, eager to regain ground. Sir, we already, not you. Richard's voice stayed calm. Flat. The man stopped mid-word. A small shift, but it changed the room. All eyes moved back to her. Evelyn felt it. Every stare. Heavy. Waiting for her to fail. Waiting for this to collapse into something easier to understand. She set the mop aside. Slowly. The wheels of the bucket squeaked against the marble. A small, ordinary sound. It made the moment feel sharper. It is structured as a protection clause, she began. Her voice was steady. She did not rush. But the wording allows post-signature interpretation. A few brows tightened. Not confusion. Recognition. She stepped closer to the table. Not too close. Just enough. If anything goes wrong after the deal, the responsibility shifts entirely to your company. She pointed again. Same line. Same place. They walk away clean. The legal advisor opened his tablet again. Faster this time. His fingers moved, but his face had changed. Less certain. Someone else leaned in to look. Another followed. A ripple. Quiet, but real. Richard watched all of it. Not the contract. The people. That was the third thing that felt wrong. He was not verifying the clause. He was watching them react to it. Testing something. Evelyn felt it click, just a little. This was not about the deal. Not entirely. You are saying we missed this? One board member asked, his voice tighter now. Not mocking anymore. Careful. Evelyn did not answer him. She looked at Richard instead. That was the risk. That was the line she was crossing. He did not look away. I am saying it was easy to miss, she replied after a beat. Neutral. No accusation. But not soft either. The legal advisor swallowed. We ran multiple reviews. His voice dropped at the end. Like he did not fully believe it anymore. Another executive flipped pages back and forth. Faster now. Paper brushing paper. The sound built tension without meaning to. Richard leaned back further in his chair. His fingers steepled together. Calm. Too calm. And yet, he said quietly, she did not miss it. The sentence landed harder than it should have. No one responded. No one could. Evelyn felt the shift again. Subtle, but undeniable. The room was no longer against her. Not fully. But not with her either. Suspended. Waiting for direction. Waiting for him. A man near the window adjusted his tie. Small movement. Nervous. "Sir, we can revise the clause before signing," he offered quickly. An escape. A clean fix. Something to close the moment. Richard did not take it. He tilted his head slightly. Studying Evelyn again. Like she was the real document now. Not the one on the table. "What is your name?" he asked. Simple question. But it cut through everything else. Evelyn hesitated for half a second. Just enough to feel it. Evelyn Carter. He nodded once. Slow. Memorizing it. Or pretending to. Hard to tell. Another pause followed. Longer this time. The kind that stretches. Makes people shift in their seats. Makes them think something bigger is coming. Evelyn noticed something else then. No one had called security again. Not after his first word. Not after his hand went up. They were waiting. All of them. On him. Richard glanced down at the closed contract, then back at her. A faint breath left his nose. Not quite a sigh. Not quite approval. Something in between. "Tell me something, Evelyn," he said. His voice softened, but not in a comforting way. In a precise way. Like placing a piece on a board. "If you saw this, a beat." His eyes sharpened just slightly. "Why did you choose to speak?" The question did not sound casual. It landed like something heavier, like it had been waiting. Evelyn felt it in her chest before she answered. Not fear. Not exactly. More like standing on the edge of something she could not step back from. The room held still. Even the faint tapping on tablets had stopped. Everyone was listening now. Not to her explanation. To her reason. That was different. She drew a slow breath. The air smelled faintly of polish and coffee. Ordinary things. Out of place in a moment like this. "Because it matters," she said. Simple. Direct. A few people shifted. The answer did not impress them. It was not technical. Not clever. Just honest. Richard did not react. Not yet. His gaze stayed fixed. Waiting. Evelyn felt the need to add more. Not to defend herself. To be understood. "If you sign it, you carry the risk alone," she continued. "Everyone else walks away." Her voice stayed steady. But there was something underneath it now. Not emotion. Conviction. That word hung in the space between them. A man near the far end leaned back slowly, folding his arms. No longer amused. Just watching. The legal advisor looked down at his tablet again. Slower this time. Careful. Like every word now mattered more than before. Richard tilted his head slightly. The movement was subtle, but it sharpened his expression. "That is not what I asked," he said. Quiet. Controlled. The correction was gentle. But it redirected everything. Evelyn paused. A second too long. She understood the difference now. He was not asking what the clause did. He was asking why she chose to speak when no one else did. That was not about contracts. That was about her. The room felt smaller again. Like the walls had leaned in just a little more. She could feel eyes on her back. On her hands. On the space where she stood. She resisted the urge to step away. I could have ignored it, she said finally. The words came slower now. Measured. No one would have noticed. A quiet ripple passed through the table. Not agreement. Recognition. Richard did not interrupt. That was the fourth thing that felt wrong. He let her speak. All the way through. But it would still be there, she added. After the deal. After everything. Her fingers brushed lightly against the edge of the table. Not gripping. Just grounding herself. And by then it would be too late. Silence followed. Not empty. Full. The kind that presses against your ears. Someone shifted in their chair. Another adjusted a pen, then set it down again. Small movements. Uncertain. Richard's eyes did not leave her. There was no approval in them. No dismissal either. Just focus. Intense. Precise. Like he was aligning something in his mind. A thought. A pattern. So you spoke, he said. It was not a question. It sounded like confirmation. Evelyn nodded once. Small. Controlled. Yes. Another pause stretched out. Longer this time. It felt deliberate. Like he was letting the moment breathe. Or weigh down on everyone else. A man near the window cleared his throat, then stopped himself. No one wanted to break it first. That much was clear now. Richard's fingers tapped together once. Soft. Almost thoughtful. Even knowing the consequences, he asked. That shifted the room again. The word consequences settled differently than before. He was not talking about the deal anymore. Evelyn understood that immediately. This was about her place. Her job. Her future. Everything tied to a badge that said she should not even be in that room. Her heartbeat picked up. Just a little. But her face did not change. She did not look away. I did not think about that, she said. The answer came faster this time. More certain. A few brows lifted. Not because they believed her. Because they did not. People always think about consequences. That is how rooms like this work. Richard watched her carefully. Searching for something. A crack. A hesitation. Something that would make her easier to define. Easier to dismiss. He did not find it. Not yet. The legal advisor shifted again. Uncomfortable now. Sir, if I may, we can resolve this quickly and proceed. Richard raised his hand again. Same motion. Same control. The man stopped. Again. It was no longer surprising. It was expected. Evelyn noticed something else then. No one questioned him. Not even a little. Not even now. That realization settled quietly in her mind. Heavy in a different way. Richard leaned forward slightly. Just enough to change the distance between them. You did think about it, he said. Not accusing. Not soft. Just precise. You just decided it did not matter. The statement hung there. Sharp. Close to the truth. Evelyn did not respond right away. She let the silence sit. Let it settle. Then she spoke. No, she said. One word. Clear. It cut through the room. Several heads turned. That was not the answer they expected. Richard's eyes narrowed slightly. Not in anger. In focus. Then what mattered, he asked. The question landed differently this time. Not as a test. As something closer to a line she could not cross back over. Evelyn held his gaze. Her voice stayed steady. But something deeper moved beneath it now. Something that did not belong to this room at all. Being able to live with it after, she said quietly. The words did not echo. They settled. Heavy. Real. No one moved. No one spoke. For a brief moment, the room felt still. Not tense. Not shifting. Just still. Richard leaned back again. Slow. Deliberate. His expression did not change, but something behind it did. Something subtle. Something only visible if you were looking for it. And he was. He glanced once at the contract. Then back at her. A faint breath left him. Not approval. Not disapproval. Something harder to name. Interesting, he said again. The same word as before. But it carried more weight now. The board members exchanged quick looks. Confused. Uneasy. Trying to read the direction of something they did not fully understand. Evelyn stayed where she was. Still. Grounded. Waiting. Not for approval. For what came next. Because whatever this was, it was not over. Not even close. Richard's fingers rested lightly on the closed contract. He did not open it. He did not sign it. He just let his hand sit there. Like it meant something else now. Then he looked up at the room. Not at her. At all of them. And his next words changed everything. No one expected him to look away from her first. But he did. Richard's gaze shifted across the table, slow and deliberate, like he was counting something invisible. Each face. Each reaction. Each silence. How many of you read this clause? He asked. His voice stayed calm, but it carried weight now. No one answered. Not immediately. A few eyes dropped to the table. One executive adjusted his glasses, then looked down at his notes like the answer might be written there. The legal advisor cleared his throat again, softer this time. We conducted a full review process, he said, but the confidence was gone. It did not sound like a defense anymore. It sounded like a habit. Richard nodded once. Not in agreement. In acknowledgement. I did not ask about the process, he said. Quiet. Controlled. I asked how many of you actually saw it. The distinction landed hard. A man near the center of the table shifted in his chair, then slowly raised a hand halfway. Hesitation hung in the air. Then he lowered it again. No one else moved. Not one. The silence stretched longer than before. It felt heavier now. Like something was being exposed, not discovered. Evelyn watched it unfold without speaking. She stayed still, hands relaxed at her sides. But inside, something tightened. This was not about her anymore. Not fully. Richard leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on the table. Interesting, he murmured again. The same word, but colder this time. He tapped the closed contract once with his finger. We have a room full of experienced executives. A pause. Short. Sharp. And not one of you stopped it. No one responded. No one could. The weight of that sentence settled into the chairs, into the glass walls, into the quiet hum of the room itself. A faint sound came from the far end. Someone exhaled too quickly, then tried to hide it. It did not work. Richard's gaze flicked in that direction, then back to the center. Always controlled. Always precise. Evelyn noticed something else. He was not angry. Not in the way people expected. There was no raised voice. No sharp movement. Just a deeper stillness. That made it worse. Do you know why? He asked. No one answered. Again. But this time, it was different. This silence was not confusion. It was caution. Careful. Calculated. waiting for him to define the answer. Richard leaned back slowly. His chair made a soft sound against the floor. "Because you assumed it was safe," he said. The words landed evenly. "Because it looked correct." Another pause. "Because no one wanted to be the one who questioned it." That last line settled differently. A few heads lowered further. Not out of shame. Out of recognition. Evelyn felt that one too. It echoed in a quieter place. Richard's eyes moved again. Across the room. Then back to her. Brief. Intentional. Like she was the contrast in the equation. "And yet," he continued, "someone with no seat at this table did." A slight shift moved through the group. Subtle. Uneasy. The line between them had been drawn clearly now. Evelyn did not move. But she felt it. The separation. The attention. It pressed against her shoulders. Not welcome. Not hostile. Just present. The legal advisor straightened his posture, trying to recover ground. "Sir, we can address this immediately. Update the clause and proceed with the signing." His voice carried urgency now. Not authority. "There is no need to delay the transaction." Richard did not respond right away. He let the word sit. Then he glanced down at the contract again. Still closed. Still untouched. "There is every reason to delay," he said. Quiet. Final. The room shifted again. Chairs adjusted. Papers moved. A faint tension spread through the air like something invisible tightening. Evelyn watched his hand. It still rested lightly on the contract. Not pressing. Not claiming. Just there. Like it meant more than a document now. "This was not an accident," he added. The sentence cut through the room. Clean. Direct. A few heads lifted quickly. That changed everything. The legal advisor blinked, caught off guard. "Sir." Richard did not look at him. His eyes stayed forward. Focused. "The wording is deliberate," he said. "It is designed to be overlooked." A pause followed. Not long. Just enough to let the implication settle. "Which means someone expected you not to question it." The weight of that realization moved through the room like a quiet shock. People glanced at each other now. Not openly. Carefully. Measuring reactions. Looking for something to hold on to. Evelyn felt her breath slow. This was bigger than she thought. Bigger than a clause. Bigger than a mistake. Richard finally lifted the contract again. Just slightly. Enough to break its stillness. He did not open it. Not yet. "So here is the real question," he said. His voice dropped just enough to pull everyone in. Every eye fixed on him. Every movement stopped. Even the faint hum of the room seemed to fade behind it. Evelyn felt it too. That shift. That edge. This was no longer about what was written. It was about what came next. Richard's gaze moved once more. Across the table. Then back to her. Just for a second. Then away again. "If this was meant to pass unnoticed," he said slowly, "who benefits from that?" The question did not stay in the air. It sank. Slow. Heavy. Who benefits from that? No one spoke. But something changed. Eyes no longer stayed on the contract. They moved. Sideways. Quick glances. Short. Careful. Like no one wanted to be the first to look too long at anyone else. Evelyn noticed it immediately. This was not confusion anymore. This was awareness. Richard watched them all. Quiet. Patient. Like he expected this moment. "Well," he said. Not louder. Just enough. A man near the far end shifted in his seat. His fingers tapped once against the table, then stopped. Another executive leaned back, arms crossed tighter now. Defensive. The legal advisor looked down again, but this time he did not scroll. He just stared. Still. Thinking. Or avoiding. Hard to tell. Evelyn felt the tension move through the room like a current. Invisible, but strong. This was no longer about being wrong. It was about being exposed. Richard let the silence stretch. He did not rush it. That felt intentional. Like he wanted them to sit in it. To feel it fully. If this clause passes, he continued, we take the fall. A pause. Which means someone else does not. The implication was clear now. No one needed it explained. A faint sound came from the window side. A chair shifted. Subtle. Nervous. Richard's eyes flicked there for half a second. Then away. He was tracking reactions. Not answers. Evelyn felt that too. This was not an investigation. Not yet. It was something sharper. A filter. A test. Sir, the legal advisor said carefully, his voice lower now, this could have been an oversight from the other party. The suggestion landed weak. It did not hold. Even he seemed unsure of it. Richard tilted his head slightly. Could have been, he repeated. The word sounded neutral. But they did not settle that way. But it was not. That ended it. Clean. Final. A few people straightened in their seats. Others went still. The room had crossed another line. Evelyn felt her breathing slow again. This was unfolding in layers. Each one. Heavier than the last. She kept her hands still. Her posture calm. But inside, something sharpened. She was starting to understand. Richard was not surprised by any of this. Not really. We vetted them, one executive said suddenly. His voice carried urgency now. Their firm has a solid record. No red flags. He sounded like he needed that to be true. Richard looked at him. Not dismissive. Not convinced. Just, steady. Records do not write clauses, he said. A quiet pause followed. The sentence hung there. Simple. Unavoidable. Evelyn caught the shift again. People were no longer defending the deal. They were defending themselves. That was different. That was telling. The legal advisor leaned forward slightly. We can run an immediate audit. Cross-check all revisions. Identify where the language changed. His voice was faster now. Focused. Trying to regain control. Trying to move the room forward. Richard did not nod. He did not refuse. He just listened. Then he asked, when was the last revision? The advisor hesitated. Just for a second. He tapped his tablet. Scrolled. Late last night, he said. Sent through the final draft before this meeting. A few heads turned at that. Not openly. But enough. Late changes always carried weight. Evelyn felt it too. That detail mattered. More than the others. Richard's fingers tapped once against the contract again. Soft. Controlled. And who approved it, he asked. The advisor froze. Not fully. Just enough. His eyes flicked to the side. Then back down. That was all it took. The room saw it. Everyone did. A small moment. But it cracked something open. Evelyn's chest tightened slightly. Not fear. Recognition. Something was not lining up. It came through the standard chain, the advisor said quickly. Too quickly. Reviewed and cleared before circulation. His words were precise. But his tone had shifted. Richard noticed. Of course he did. He leaned back slowly. His chair moved a fraction of an inch. The sound barely audible. Standard chain, he repeated. The phrase lingered. Then faded into something heavier. That means it passed through multiple hands. A pause. And no one questioned it. No one answered. Again. But this. Silence was different. It was no longer passive. It was defensive. People were choosing not to speak now. That was clear. Evelyn felt it settle in her chest. This was the part where things changed. Where lines stopped being invisible. Richard's gaze moved across the table again. Slower this time. More deliberate. Except one, he added. He did not look at her when he said it. But the room did. All at once. Evelyn felt it hit her again. The attention. Heavier now. Sharper. She did not move. She did not react. But inside, something shifted. She was no longer invisible. Not here. Not now. And that came with a cost. The legal advisor adjusted his tie again. His hand lingered there a moment longer than before. Sir, with respect, he said, choosing his words carefully, we should focus on correcting the issue before making assumptions. The sentence sounded reasonable. Safe. Designed to slow things down. Richard listened. Then he nodded once. Slow. You are right, he said. The room exhaled slightly. A small release. Brief. We should correct it. Another pause followed. Short. Controlled. Then he added, after we understand why it exists. The air tightened again. Instantly. Whatever relief had been there disappeared just as fast. Evelyn felt it in her chest. That shift. That edge. This was not going away. Not quickly. Richard's hand finally lifted from the contract. Just slightly. Enough to break contact. He looked at the legal advisor. Then at the rest of the table. One by one. Because if we do not understand that, he said quietly, we will miss the next one too. The sentence settled deep. No one argued. No one could. A faint sound came from the hallway outside the glass walls. Distant. Irrelevant. Inside, everything stayed still. Focused. Heavy. Evelyn felt something else then. A realization, slow but clear. This was not just about the clause. It was about trust. About control. About who was paying attention and who was not. And she had stepped into the middle of it without meaning to. Richard's gaze returned to her once more. Brief. Intentional. Then he looked away. We are not done here, he said. The words did not end the moment. They deepened it. We are not done here. No one moved to leave. No one reached for their phone. Even the quiet habits, the small escapes, disappeared. The room stayed locked in place. Evelyn felt it press around her. Not just tension. Expectation. That was new. Richard did not look at her this time. He looked at the table. At the contract. At the people who had just been exposed without a single accusation. That silence was doing more than any confrontation could. Open it again, he said. Not loud. Not sharp. But final. The legal advisor hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. Then he reached forward and pulled the contract back into view. The paper slid against the polished surface with a soft sound. Too clean. Too controlled. He flipped to page 14. Slowly this time. Careful. Every movement felt watched. Because it was. Evelyn stayed where she was. She did not step closer again. But her eyes followed the page. The same line. The same wording. Still there. Still quiet. Still dangerous. A man near the end leaned in. Another adjusted his glasses again. This time, he did not pretend confidence. He read. Actually read. That was the difference now. Richard rested his elbow lightly on the armrest. His fingers touched his chin. Thinking. Or waiting. Hard to tell. Read it out loud, he said. The request shifted the room again. Reading in silence was one thing. Saying it out loud was another. It forced clarity. The legal advisor swallowed once. Then began. His voice started steady. Professional. But as the sentence unfolded, something changed. Subtle at first. Then clearer. A hesitation. A slight stumble over a phrase that should have been simple. The clause sounded different when spoken. Less safe. Less neutral. That was the trap. Evelyn felt it too. Hearing it confirmed what she already knew. It was designed to pass unnoticed on the page. Not in the air. The advisor finished reading. The last word hung there. No one spoke. Not immediately. But the shift was undeniable. Faces changed. Slightly. Enough. Richard lowered his hand from his chin. Again, he said. No explanation. Just repetition. The advisor blinked. But he obeyed. This time, slower. More careful. The words landed. Heavier. Each one clearer. Each implication harder to ignore. Evelyn noticed a small detail. A man halfway down the table shook his head once. Barely visible. Like he was rejecting something he had just realized. That mattered. Richard noticed it too. Of course he did. He noticed everything. Stop, he said quietly. The advisor stopped mid-line. The room froze again. Richard leaned forward slightly. His gaze moved to the man who had shaken his head. You heard it, he said. Not a question. The man hesitated. His throat moved as he swallowed. Yes, he said. The word came out softer than expected. Not confident. Not certain. Just honest. That was enough. Richard held his gaze for a second longer. Then nodded once. Small. Controlled. What changed, he asked. The question landed clean. Direct. No room to hide behind process or procedure. The man shifted in his chair. His fingers pressed together. Then released. It sounds different, he admitted. A pause. Clearer. Another pause. Worse. The last word stayed in the air. Heavy. True. No one disagreed. Evelyn felt something settle inside her. Not relief. Not yet. But confirmation. The room was finally seeing what she saw. Richard leaned back again. Slow. Deliberate. His chair gave a faint sound. He did not break eye contact with the man until the moment passed. Then he looked away. Exactly, he said. The word was quiet. But it carried weight. A few people shifted again. Not as defensive now. More, unsettled. That was different. The legal advisor lowered the document slightly. His grip had tightened. Just enough to wrinkle the edge. He did not notice. Evelyn did. Small things mattered in moments like this. They revealed more than words. Richard's gaze moved once more. Across the table. Then toward the glass wall. For a brief second, his reflection looked back at him. Still. Controlled. But something behind it had shifted. He turned back. So we agree, he said. It is not an oversight. No one argued. No one offered alternatives. The agreement was silent. But complete. Evelyn felt it lock into place. This was no longer a possibility. It was a fact. The room accepted it. Whether they wanted to or not. Which means, Richard continued, someone expected you to miss it. The words landed deeper now. Because they were no longer theoretical. They were directed. A few eyes moved again. Quick. Careful. Watching each other. Measuring. The tension changed shape. Less confusion. More suspicion. Evelyn felt it shift around her. Like the room had turned inward on itself. Richard let the silence stretch again. Longer this time. He did not rush it. He never did. Then he added, and someone expected you to sign anyway. That line hit harder. A quiet breath left someone near the window. Another person leaned back, arms crossing tighter. The room was no longer neutral. It was divided. Not openly. Not yet. But the lines were forming. Evelyn stayed still. But inside, something sharpened further. This was moving beyond her. Beyond the clause. Into something else. Something deeper. Richard's eyes returned to the contract. Then to the advisor. Trace it, he said. The instruction was simple. But it carried weight. The advisor nodded quickly. Yes, sir. His fingers were already moving on the tablet. Faster now. Focused. Urgent. The search had begun. Evelyn watched it happen. Quietly. Carefully. This was the moment everything shifted from observation to action. And once that started, it would not stop easily. Richard leaned back again. His posture relaxed just slightly. But his eyes did not. They stayed sharp. Focused. Waiting. Not for answers. For reactions. Because in a room like this, the truth did not just come from documents. It showed in people first. And he was watching all of it. Every glance. Every hesitation. Every breath. Then his voice cut through again. Soft. Controlled. Let us see who touched it last. The word settled like a trigger being pulled. Let us see who touched it last. The legal advisor's fingers moved faster now, tapping across the tablet screen with sharp, precise motions. The glow from the display reflected faintly on his glasses. He was no longer pretending control. He was searching. The room leaned in without moving. Eyes shifted toward him, then away, then back again. No one wanted to look too interested. That would say too much. Evelyn watched his hands. Small tremor. Barely visible. But it was there. That mattered. The system log opened. Rows of timestamps. Names. Edits. Each one a quiet record of decisions made hours ago. Or minutes. The advisor scrolled. Slow at first. Then stopped. Something caught. His finger hovered above the screen. A pause. Too long. Richard noticed immediately. Read it, he said. Not louder. Just enough. The advisor hesitated. Then cleared his throat. Initial draft reviewed at 6:12 p.m. His voice was steady again. Professional reflex returning. Secondary edits at 8:47 p.m. He scrolled again. The room stayed silent. Watching. Waiting. Final revision, he stopped. The words did not come right away. That pause stretched. Just enough to change the air. Evelyn felt it. That moment when something shifts before anyone says it out loud. Richard did not blink. Continue, he said. The advisor swallowed. Final revision at 11:58 p.m. A few heads turned at that. Late. Very late. Not unusual. But not routine either. Approved and circulated at 12:03 a.m. Another pause. Then he added, quieter now, authorized by internal clearance. The phrase sounded safe. Generic. But it did not hold. Not anymore. Richard tilted his head slightly. Name, he said. One word. Direct. The advisor's finger hovered again. Then moved. Slowly this time. Careful. Like the screen might react differently if he rushed it. He tapped once. The name appeared. He did not say it immediately. That was enough. The room felt it. The delay carried meaning. Evelyn's chest tightened slightly. Not fear. Anticipation. Something was about to break open. Say it, Richard said. Still calm. Still controlled. But there was no space left to hesitate. The advisor exhaled once. Then spoke. Mark Ellison. The name landed. Soft. But heavy. A few people blinked. One man near the center straightened instantly. Another looked down too quickly. The ripple spread, quiet but real. Evelyn felt it pass through the room like a current. Recognition. Surprise. Something else beneath it. Richard did not react right away. That was the first thing. No visible shift. No sudden movement. Just stillness. That made it worse. Position, he asked. The advisor glanced back at the screen. Senior Compliance Officer, he replied. His voice was quieter now. Less certain. Richard nodded once. Small. Precise. He reviewed and cleared the final version. Not a question. A statement. The advisor nodded. Yes, sir. Silence followed. Thick. Pressing. The name settled into the room like a weight no one wanted to carry. Evelyn noticed something else. No one spoke in Mark's defense. Not even a small comment. That absence said more than words. Richard leaned back slowly. His fingers rested lightly on the armrest again. Where is he? He asked. The question cut through the room cleanly. A man near the far side hesitated. Then answered. He is not in this meeting. That was obvious. But not helpful. Richard's eyes shifted to him. Brief. I am aware, he said. The man went quiet. Quickly. The advisor checked the system again. Scrolled. He logged out shortly after the document was sent, he added. No further activity since. That detail lingered. It felt important. Too clean. Too complete. Evelyn felt it settle in her mind. Something about the timing did not sit right. Richard noticed that too. Of course he did. Convenient, he said softly. The word carried no emotion. But it sharpened the moment. A few people shifted again. Chairs moved. Quiet. Controlled. But the tension had changed shape. It was no longer about a mistake. It was about a person. A decision. A line crossed. Evelyn felt her breath slow. The room had a direction now. A focus. Richard's gaze moved across the table again. Measuring reactions. Watching for something. Anything. Then his eyes paused for half a second on one executive near the middle. The man looked down immediately. Too fast. Evelyn caught it. So did Richard. He said nothing. Not yet. That silence was intentional. It gave people space to reveal themselves. And some already had. Contact him, Richard said finally. The instruction was simple. But it carried weight. The advisor nodded quickly. His fingers moved again. Dialing. Waiting. The room held still. The call rang once. Then again. No answer. The advisor lowered the device slightly. Voicemail, he said. Richard did not react. He expected that. It showed. Leave a message, he said. Calm. Final. The advisor nodded again. He began speaking into the phone. Formal. Controlled. Requesting immediate contact. Urgent review. Standard language. But the room knew better. This was not routine. Not anymore. Evelyn watched the faces around the table. Some stayed neutral. Too neutral. Others looked away. Avoiding. Calculating. And one or two looked worried. That stood out. Richard saw it too. He always did. The advisor ended the call. Lowered the phone. The silence returned. He glanced up. Waiting for the next instruction. Richard did not give one right away. He let the moment stretch. Let the absence of an answer speak. Then he said quietly, he knew. The words landed differently than anything before. Not a guess. Not a theory. A conclusion. No one argued. No one could. Evelyn felt something shift inside her. This was no longer about catching a mistake. It was about understanding intent. And intent changed everything. Richard's gaze moved again. Slow. Controlled. Then he added, almost to himself, the question is who else did. The words did not echo. They settled. The question is who else did. No one looked up right away. That was the first sign. Not confusion. Avoidance. Eyes dropped to screens. To papers. To nothing at all. The room did not breathe the same anymore. Evelyn felt it shift. The air was tighter. Sharper. People were not just listening now. They were calculating. Richard did not press. Not immediately. He let the silence stretch again. Let it work. That was his way. A quiet kind of pressure. Check access logs, he said finally. The legal advisor nodded quickly. His fingers moved again. Faster now. Less hesitation. The system opened another layer. Not edits this time. Views. Access points. Every person who had opened the file. Every time. The list appeared. Longer than expected. Evelyn noticed that first. This was not just one person. It never was. The advisor scrolled slowly. Names passed by. Some familiar. Some not. Timestamps lined up in neat columns. Clean. Organized. But something about it felt messy underneath. Start from the last 24 hours, Richard said. Calm. Precise. The advisor filtered the data. The list shortened. But not enough. Read them, Richard added. No room for summary. No shortcuts. The advisor swallowed. Then began. Daniel Reeves. 3:14 p.m. A man near the end nodded slightly. Acknowledging. Sarah Lynn. 4:02 p.m. She did not react. Just kept her eyes forward. Andrew Holt. 5:27 p.m. Another small shift. Another silent recognition. The names continued. One by one. Each one a quiet wait. Evelyn listened. She did not know most of them. But she watched their faces. That told her more. Some stayed still. Too still. Others shifted. Just enough to show something beneath the surface. Then the advisor paused. Again. That hesitation returned. Subtle. But clear. Richard noticed. Of course he did. Continue, he said. The advisor nodded. Final access before revision, his voice dropped slightly. Michael Trent. 11:52 p.m. A few heads turned. Not all. But enough. The name meant something. Evelyn saw it in the reactions. Not shock. Recognition. The kind that comes with context she did not have. Richard's eyes moved immediately. Not to the advisor. To the table. Searching. Measuring. Then they stopped. On a man 2 seats from the center. Michael Trent. He did not look up. Not right away. His hands rested flat on the table. Still. Too still. That was the second sign. You accessed the file minutes before the final revision, Richard said. Not a question. Michael exhaled once. Slow. Then looked up. His expression was controlled. But not neutral. Yes, he said. His voice was steady. Practiced. I was reviewing the final draft. A reasonable answer. Clean. Expected. But something about it did not settle. Evelyn felt it immediately. It was too smooth. Too prepared. Richard leaned back slightly. Watching him. Not the words. The timing. The delivery. Did you notice the clause? He asked. Direct. No build-up. Michael hesitated. Just a fraction. Then answered. No, the word landed flat. But not clean. Evelyn caught it. That slight delay. That small space before the answer. It mattered. Richard caught it too. His eyes narrowed just enough to show focus. Not accusation. Yet. You reviewed the final draft, Richard repeated. Slow. Minutes before it was changed. A pause. And you did not notice it. Michael nodded once. Correct. His hands remained still. But his fingers pressed slightly into the surface of the table. A detail easy to miss. Evelyn did not miss it. The room shifted again. This time, quieter. More contained. People were watching him now. Not openly. Carefully. Measuring. Richard let the moment sit. He did not interrupt. He did not push. He waited. That was the difference. Pressure without force. It made people reveal more. What were you reviewing? Richard asked. Michael blinked once. General compliance, he said. Ensuring all terms aligned with our risk parameters. The answer sounded correct. It fit the role. It fit the situation. But it did not feel complete. Evelyn felt it again. That small gap. Like something was missing between the words. Richard leaned forward slightly. Just enough to change the space between them. And this clause aligned, he asked. Michael's jaw tightened. Barely. At the time, I did not interpret it that way, he said. The phrasing was careful. Defensive without sounding defensive. That mattered. The legal advisor glanced at him. Then quickly looked back down. He felt it too. The shift. The inconsistency. Evelyn's chest tightened slightly. Not fear. Recognition. This was no longer just about who touched the document. It was about who understood it. And who chose not to. Richard studied him for a long second. No movement. No interruption. Just observation. Then he leaned back again. Slow. Controlled. At the time, he repeated. The words echoed differently now. Not neutral. Loaded. Michael did not respond. He held his posture. His gaze steady. But something had changed. Just enough. Evelyn saw it. A crack. Small. But real. The room felt it too. The silence returned. Thicker than before. Not waiting anymore. Watching. Then Richard spoke again. Quiet. Precise. What changed after? The question did not leave room to hide. What changed after? Michael did not answer right away. His eyes held steady, but something behind them shifted. A flicker. Quick. Then gone. The room caught it. Not everyone understood it, but they felt it. That was enough. Evelyn felt it too. That small hesitation. It did not belong to someone certain of their answer. It belonged to someone choosing one. Michael exhaled slowly through his nose. Controlled. Measured. The language was updated, he said. His voice stayed even. Professional. After my review. A clean answer. Simple. But it did not land clean. Richard did not respond. Not yet. He watched him. Waiting. Letting the answer sit in the space between them. Evelyn noticed something else. Michael's fingers had shifted. No longer flat. Slightly curled now. Tension finding its way out. Updated by whom? Richard asked. Still calm. Still precise. Michael's gaze flicked for half a second. Not to the advisor. Not to the contract. To the far side of the table. Then back. That moment was small. But it said everything. Evelyn saw it. So did Richard. Final clearance came through compliance, Michael replied. The words were correct. Technically. But they avoided the question. That mattered. The legal advisor glanced up again. Brief. Uneasy. He felt the shift too. This was no longer procedural. This was personal. Richard leaned forward slightly. Just enough to close the distance again. That is not a name, he said. Quiet. Direct. The correction landed sharper this time. Michael's jaw tightened again. More visible now. He held his posture. But the control was thinner. Mark Ellison, he said finally. The same name. But now it carried weight. Shared weight. The room shifted again. People were no longer just listening. They were connecting pieces. Evelyn felt it click. Michael and Mark. Same chain. Same moment. Not coincidence. Richard nodded once. Slow. And you trusted that review, he said. Not a question. A statement. Michael nodded back. Yes. The word came faster this time. Too fast. Evelyn felt it. That urgency. That need to close the line. It did not feel like confidence. It felt like distance. Distance from something he did not want to say. Richard saw it too. He always did. Without checking the final language, he added. The sentence landed differently. Not accusing. But narrowing. Michael paused again. Just a beat. Correct, he said. But the word did not carry the same weight as before. It sounded lighter. Weaker. The room felt it. That shift. Evelyn watched the others now. A woman near the window leaned slightly away. Subtle. A man 2 seats down adjusted his watch. Again. And again. Small movements. But they built a pattern. People were reacting now. Not just observing. Richard leaned back slowly. His chair gave a faint sound. He let the silence stretch. Let it settle into everyone. Then he spoke again. You reviewed the document minutes before it changed, he said. You cleared it. A pause. And you did not notice a clause that transfers all liability to us. The words lined up. Clear. Unavoidable. Michael did not respond immediately. His gaze held. But something had shifted behind it. Not panic. Not yet. Pressure. That was enough. Evelyn felt it rise in the room. Quiet. Tight. Like something building beneath the surface. I reviewed it under the assumption that final compliance would confirm the details, Michael said. His voice was steady. But the phrasing had changed. More careful now. More distant. He was moving away from responsibility. Slowly. Deliberately. Richard did not interrupt. He let him finish. That made it worse. It forced every word to stand on its own. That is the process, Michael added. The sentence sounded rehearsed. Familiar. Safe. But in this room, at this moment, it did not hold the same weight. Evelyn felt that too. The process was no longer the shield it had been. Richard nodded once. It is, he said. Agreement. Simple. Then he added, until it fails. The room tightened again. That line cut deeper than the others. It stripped away the safety of procedure. Left only decisions. Individual ones. Michael's fingers pressed harder into the table now. The movement was small. But it was there. Evelyn saw it. That tension. That crack widening just a little more. Richard leaned forward again. Slower this time. More deliberate. You said you did not interpret it that way, he said. His voice dropped slightly. Pulling the moment closer. Walk me through that. The request was calm. But it carried weight. Not optional. Michael blinked once. His eyes shifted down to the contract. Then back up. The wording was ambiguous, he said. It could be read as a conditional safeguard. A technical answer. Clean. Logical. But something about it felt incomplete. Evelyn felt it immediately. That gap again. Like the explanation stopped just short of the truth. Richard held his gaze. Could be, he repeated. Then a pause. Short. Controlled. But it was not. The statement landed final. No room left for interpretation. Michael did not respond. He could not. Not without stepping into something deeper. The room felt it too. That line. That edge. Everyone was standing near it now. Evelyn's breath slowed. She felt it clearly. This was the moment where it would turn. Where explanation would no longer be enough. Richard leaned back one more time. His expression did not change. But his eyes sharpened. Focused. Then he said quietly, you saw something. The words did not accuse. But they pointed. Directly. Michael's gaze froze for half a second. Just long enough. Evelyn saw it. So did everyone else. And in that brief silence, the truth felt closer than before. Richard did not look away. He did not move. He just waited. Then he added, softer now, what was it? The question did not move. It stayed between them, heavy and exact. What was it? Michael's eyes held for a second longer than they should have. Then they dropped. Just briefly. But it was enough. The room felt it. That shift. That small surrender before words. Evelyn noticed it first in his shoulders. They lowered by half an inch. Not relief. Not defeat. Something closer to pressure finding a way out. Michael exhaled slowly. There was a note, he said. The words came quieter now. Not rehearsed. Not clean. Real. Richard did not react. He did not interrupt. He waited. That silence pulled more out of him than any demand could. Attached to the draft, Michael continued. Internal comment. Not part of the final text. A few heads lifted. That detail mattered. Evelyn felt it click. Something outside the contract. Something hidden in plain sight. The legal advisor leaned forward slightly. What kind of note? He asked. His voice carried tension now. Curiosity mixed with something else. Concern. Michael hesitated again. Short. But visible. A reminder, he said. The word sounded too light for the room it landed in. Richard's eyes narrowed just slightly. Say it clearly, he said. Calm. But sharper now. Michael swallowed once. It said the clause had been cleared at a higher level, he admitted. The room shifted. Not loud. But deep. A few people exchanged quick glances. That phrase carried weight. Higher level. It moved the responsibility upward. Away from individuals. Into something broader. Harder to question. Evelyn felt it settle. That was the cover. That was the reason it passed. Richard leaned forward again. Slow. Controlled. Whose level? He asked. The question cut straight through the room. Michael's jaw tightened. He looked at the table for a moment. Then back up. It did not specify, he said. His voice was steady again. But thinner. It was just marked as executive clearance. A quiet ripple moved across the table. That phrase meant something to everyone in that room. It carried authority. It shut down doubt. It explained silence. Evelyn felt it clearly now. That was why no one questioned it. Not because they missed it. Because they chose not to push past that line. Richard did not move. Not at first. He let the weight of those words settle fully. Then he asked, and you believe that? Michael nodded. Yes. No hesitation this time. That was the truth. Or at least part of it. So you stopped looking, Richard said. The statement landed clean. No judgment in the tone. Just clarity. Michael did not respond. He did not need to. The answer was already there. The room felt it. That quiet realization spreading. One decision. One assumption. And everything after it followed. Evelyn watched the others now. A woman near the window pressed her lips together. A man closer to the door leaned back slowly, eyes fixed on the table. No one spoke. Not because they had nothing to say. Because they understood what it meant. Richard leaned back again. His chair shifted slightly. The sound was soft. But it marked the moment. Convenient, he said quietly. The same word from before. But heavier now. It carried implication. Not just observation. Michael's fingers tightened again against the table. He did not look away this time. That mattered. Evelyn saw it. A choice. Small. But deliberate. Richard's gaze held on him for a second longer. Then moved. Across the table. Searching again. Measuring reactions. Looking for something else. Someone else. Who added the note, he asked. The question changed the room again. This was no longer about reading. Or missing. It was about inserting. Intent. Michael hesitated. Longer this time. His eyes flicked once more. Not to the advisor. Not to the contract. To the same direction as before. The far side of the table. Then back. Evelyn caught it. That pattern. That repeat. It was not random. Richard saw it too. He followed that glance. Slow. Controlled. His eyes landed on the same area. A man near the edge adjusted his cuff. Too quickly. Then stilled. That was enough. The connection was not confirmed. But it was visible. And in this room, that was all it took. Michael finally spoke. It came through the revision thread, he said. Careful again. Measured. Tagged to the compliance chain. The answer avoided a name. Again. But it did not avoid the implication. Someone inside the chain had added it. Someone who knew how to make it look official. Richard nodded once. Small. Controlled. Of course it did, he said. The words were quiet. But they carried something sharper underneath. The room tightened again. Evelyn felt it in her chest. This was not just a mistake. Not just a missed clause. This was structured. Planned. Layered. Richard's fingers tapped once against the armrest. Soft. Thoughtful. Then he looked back at Michael. And you accepted it, he said. Not accusing. Just placing the fact where it belonged. Michael nodded again. Slower this time. Yes. The word did not resist. It settled. The silence that followed was different. Not tense. Not shifting. Heavy. Like something had been placed in the center of the room and no one could ignore it anymore. Evelyn felt it clearly. The truth was no longer hidden. It was just not complete. Not yet. Richard's gaze moved once more across the table. Then back to the advisor. Pull the full revision thread, he said. The instruction was immediate. Direct. The advisor nodded. Quickly. His fingers moved again. Faster now. The search deepened. The room held still. Waiting. Watching. Evelyn felt her pulse pick up just slightly. This was the next layer. The one that would not be easy to step away from. Richard leaned back one more time. His expression unchanged. But his eyes sharper than before. Then he said quietly, let us see what they thought no one would read. The screen lit up with a new layer of detail. Threads. Comments. Small fragments of conversation that were never meant to be read out loud. The legal advisor scrolled slowly this time. Careful. Like each line might change the room again. Evelyn watched the glow reflect in his glasses. It flickered with movement. That alone made the silence heavier. Read it, Richard said. Same tone. Same control. No hesitation allowed. The advisor nodded. His voice lowered as he began. Initial comment, flagged for clarity. A pause. Then he continued. Response, approved as written. No further review needed. The words sounded harmless. But something about them felt rehearsed. Like they were written to stop questions, not answer them. Evelyn felt it immediately. That was not normal language. That was closing language. The advisor scrolled. Next entry. Do not escalate. Already cleared. A few heads lifted. That line hit differently. Not technical. Directive. Richard did not move. But his eyes sharpened. Evelyn noticed his fingers stop tapping. Completely still now. That meant something. Continue, Richard said. The advisor swallowed. Follow up. Leave it. It holds. The room shifted again. Subtle. But real. That phrasing was not legal. Not formal. It was casual. Too casual for something this critical. Evelyn felt it click. These were not just notes. They were instructions. Timestamp? Richard asked. 11:56 p.m., the advisor replied. 2 minutes before the final revision. That mattered. The timing aligned too perfectly. Evelyn's chest tightened slightly. Not fear. Recognition. This was coordinated. Not rushed. Richard leaned forward just a fraction. His gaze stayed fixed on the screen. Who wrote that line? He asked. The advisor hesitated. Again. His finger hovered. Then moved. User. ID, internal alias, he said. Not a direct name. That changed the room. Alias meant intent. It meant someone chose not to be visible. Evelyn felt that word settle. Heavy. Planned. Richard nodded once. Slow. Expand it, he said. The advisor tapped again. Another layer opened. Cross-reference. Linked accounts. Hidden trails becoming visible. The system took a second longer this time. Just enough to stretch the silence. Then a name appeared. The advisor's breath caught slightly. Not loud. But enough. Say it, Richard said. The command came softer now. But sharper. The advisor looked up briefly. Then back down. It traces back to executive routing, he said. That was not a name. That was a shield. The room felt it. That phrase again. Broad. Protected. Hard to challenge. Richard's expression did not change. But something behind his eyes did. Focus sharpened into something more precise. Which executive? He asked. No room left. No space to deflect. The advisor swallowed again. Slower this time. It routes through delegated clearance authority, he said. His voice had thinned. The structure of the answer was correct. But the meaning was clear. It pointed higher. Evelyn felt it in her chest. This was moving beyond the room. Beyond the people sitting at the table. Richard leaned back slowly. His chair made a soft sound. He let the silence stretch again. Longer now. Letting the implication settle into everyone present. No one spoke. No one even shifted. That was new. The room had stopped reacting. It was absorbing. So, Richard said finally, someone used an alias to insert a directive that prevented review, and marked it as cleared at a level no one would question. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The summary landed with more weight than anything before. Evelyn felt it clearly. This was the structure. The design. The reason it worked. A few people looked down again. Not out of uncertainty. Out of realization. They had followed it. Without question. Richard's gaze moved across the table again. Slower this time. Watching. Measuring. Then it stopped. On the same section as before. The far side. The man who had adjusted his cuff earlier sat perfectly. Still now. Too still. Evelyn noticed it. That stillness was louder than movement. Richard noticed it too. Of course he did. He did not call it out. Not yet. He let it sit. Let the pressure build. That was his method. Why hide the name? Richard asked. The question sounded simple. But it cut deep. The advisor did not answer. He could not. The system could show paths. Not intent. That answer lived somewhere else. In someone. Evelyn felt it clearly now. The room was not just looking at documents anymore. It was looking at each other. Carefully. Quietly. Searching. Richard leaned forward again. Just slightly. Enough to change the space. Because it would not hold if it was visible, he said. Not a guess. A conclusion. No one argued. No one could. The logic was too clean. Evelyn's breath slowed. The truth was forming. Not complete. But close. Richard's gaze returned to the screen one last time. Then he looked up. Across the table. Who benefits from us not questioning that level? He asked. The question did not need an answer. It already had one. It just had not been spoken yet. And that made the silence even heavier. Then, almost quietly, he added, someone here already knows. The words did not break the silence. They tightened it. Someone here already knows. No one moved. Not a chair. Not a hand. Not even a breath loud enough to notice. The room had gone still in a different way now. Not tense. Not uncertain. Aware. Evelyn felt it settle across the table like a weight no one could shift. Eyes did not meet anymore. They stayed forward. Or down. Or fixed on nothing at all. That was the first sign. Richard did not rush it. He never did. He let the moment stretch until it became uncomfortable to hold. Then longer. Until it forced something out. Look up, he said. Quiet. Not loud. But it landed. One by one, heads lifted. Slowly. Reluctantly. Not all at once. That mattered. Evelyn watched them. The order. The hesitation. It revealed more than words. A man near the center raised his eyes immediately. Another followed. But the man near the far side, the one who had adjusted his cuff, waited. Just a second too long. Then looked up. That delay stayed in the air. Richard saw it. Of course he did. His gaze moved to him without hurry. Not accusing. Not yet. Just, placed. State your role, Richard said. The man straightened slightly. His voice came controlled. Senior Operations Director. He did not add his name. That was telling. Richard did not ask for it. Not yet. Your access level, he continued. The man hesitated. Just enough. Then answered. Executive routing privileges. The phrase landed with weight. It matched the path. It matched the alias. Evelyn felt it click into place. The room did too. A quiet shift moved through the table. No one spoke. But everyone understood. Richard leaned back slowly. His chair gave a faint sound. You had the authority to tag that note, he said. Not a question. A statement. The man did not respond immediately. His jaw tightened slightly. Then he said, "It was within my clearance." The answer avoided the point. Again. That pattern was clear now. Evelyn noticed his hands. Resting on the table. Still. Too still. The same as before. Richard watched him for a long second. Then asked, "Did you write it?" "No build. No lead. Just the question." The man's eyes flicked once. To the side. Then back. That was enough. "I authorized the routing," he said. Careful. Measured. Not a denial. Not an admission. Something in between. The room reacted without moving. A shift in breathing. A tightening of posture. Evelyn felt it clearly. This was the line. Richard did not interrupt. He let the answer sit. Then he nodded once. "So you allowed it to pass," he said. The man nodded. Yes. This time, no hesitation. That mattered. He chose that word. Allowed. Not created. Not inserted. But he did not deny it either. Richard leaned forward slightly. Knowing it would not be questioned, he added. The man held his gaze. "That is how the system works," he said. The words were calm. Controlled. But they carried something underneath. Justification. Evelyn felt it. That shift from explanation to defense. The room felt it too. Richard's expression did not change. But his eyes sharpened. "No," he said quietly. The word cut through the space. Clean. That is how people choose to use the system. The difference landed hard. The man did not respond. He could not. Not without stepping further into it. The silence returned. But it was different now. It was focused. Directed. The shape of the truth was clear. Evelyn felt it settle. This was not just oversight. Not just trust. It was a choice. One person making a decision others would follow without question. Richard leaned back again. Slow. Deliberate. His gaze moved across the table. Then returned. "Why?" he asked. Simple. Direct. The man's shoulders lowered slightly. Not collapse. Not defeat. Something closer to release. "Because it would close the deal," he said. The answer came without hesitation this time. Honest. Clean. The room shifted again. A quiet realization moving through it. That was the reason. Not personal gain. Not sabotage. Efficiency. Pressure. Outcome over process. Evelyn felt it hit differently. That made it more dangerous. Not less. Richard nodded once. "At our expense," he said. The man did not argue. That silence was agreement. Evelyn's breath slowed. The full shape of it was there now. A system built on trust. Used to bypass scrutiny. And everyone inside it playing their part. Richard let the moment sit one last time. Then he looked at the contract. Still unopened. Still unsigned. He placed his hand on it again. Light. Controlled. "This ends here," he said. The words were quiet. But final. No one questioned it. No one moved to object. The room accepted it. Completely. Evelyn felt it too. That shift. The deal was no longer the center. The people were. The choices. The lines they crossed. Richard's gaze moved one last time across the table. Then to her. Brief. Intentional. Then away. "We will rebuild the process," he said. Not to her. To everyone. The statement carried weight beyond the room. Beyond the moment. It was not just correction. It was change. The kind that does not happen often. The silence held. But it was different now. Not heavy. Not tense. Something else. Something closer to clarity. Evelyn stood where she had been from the beginning. Still. Quiet. But no longer invisible. And for the first time, the room felt that. Not as a disruption. As a truth they had missed. Then Richard spoke again. Soft. Precise. And we will start with who chose to look away. No one spoke after that. The sentence did not invite a response. It settled into the room like a line that had already been crossed. And now, it was being redrawn. Richard's hand remained on the contract. Still. Controlled. He did not open it. He did not need to. The deal was no longer the focus. The room knew it. Evelyn felt it too. The shift was complete. What mattered now was not what had almost been signed. It was what had been revealed. A system that worked until someone chose not to see. Richard stood up slowly. The movement was quiet, but it changed the space immediately. Chairs did not move. No one followed. They stayed seated. Watching. Waiting. He did not look at them right away. He looked at the glass wall. His reflection stared back. Clean lines. Perfect control. But something behind it had changed. Subtle. Almost invisible. He turned back. His eyes moved across the table one last time. Not scanning. Not searching. Acknowledging. Each face. Each decision. Each silence. Then he spoke. This room runs on judgment, he said. His voice was calm. Even. Not process. A pause. Short. Enough. Process is only as strong as the people who use it. The words did not accuse. They defined. That made them harder to ignore. A man near the center shifted in his seat. Another lowered his eyes. No one argued. There was nothing to argue with. Evelyn stood where she had been from the beginning. Still. Quiet. But something had changed. Not in her. In how the room saw her. She could feel it. The weight of attention had shifted. It was no longer pressure. It was recognition. Not spoken. But present. Richard's gaze moved to her again. Brief. But different this time. Not measuring. Not testing. Something closer to understanding. Then it moved away. That mattered more than if it had stayed. We missed it, he said. Not loudly. But clearly. The words landed evenly across the room. No one corrected him. No one softened it. The ownership was deliberate. And it settled deeper because of that. Evelyn felt it. That difference. He did not say they missed it. He said we. That changed the weight. It made it shared. Not deflected. Not redirected. The legal advisor lowered his tablet slowly. For the first time, his hands were still. Completely still. No scrolling. No searching. Just holding. The moment had moved past data. Into something else. Richard stepped away from the table. Just one step. It was enough. Distance. Perspective. Control. He did not rush. He never did. The deal is suspended, he said. The decision came without hesitation. No vote. No discussion. Final. A few heads lifted slightly. Not in surprise. In acceptance. They knew it was coming. The room had already moved there. He continued. We review every revision. Every layer. A pause. And every decision behind it. The emphasis was quiet. But clear. This was not about fixing a clause. It was about understanding the chain that allowed it. Evelyn felt it settle. This would not be quick. It would not be easy. But it would be different. That mattered. Richard's gaze moved once more across the room. Then stopped. Not on Michael. Not on the advisor. On the space itself. The table. The chairs. The system they had all trusted without question. If one line can pass like this, he said, it is not the line that failed. The sentence hung in the air. No one moved. No one spoke. The meaning was clear. It was everything around it. Evelyn's breath slowed. The moment felt complete. Not resolved. But defined. The room had seen something it could not unsee. That was enough to change it. Richard turned slightly toward the door. Not leaving. Not yet. Just shifting. His hand left the contract. Finally. It stayed on the table. Unopened. Unsigned. Exactly where it had been. But now, it meant something else. A choice not taken. A mistake not made. A line that had been caught before it crossed. He paused for a second. Just long enough. Then added, we rebuild from that. The words were simple. But they carried weight beyond the room. Beyond the moment. Evelyn felt it in her chest. A quiet understanding. This was not about her. Not really. But she had been the point where it changed. That mattered. Not because of recognition. Because of consequence. The room began to shift. Slowly. Chairs moved. Papers gathered. People stood. But not quickly. Not carelessly. Something had slowed them down. Made them more aware. That would stay. At least for a while. Evelyn reached for the mop again. The handle felt the same. Cool. Familiar. Grounding. The floor still needed to be cleaned. The work had not changed. But something else had. She turned slightly toward the door. Ready to leave. To step back into the space where she belonged. Or where she thought she did. But before she moved, she heard his voice again. Not loud. Not formal. Just enough. Evelyn. She stopped. Just for a second. Then turned back. And the room felt different again.